שיוויתי השם ונגדי תמיד, 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 לנגדי תמיד. שיוויתי השם ונגדי.
Shalom, and welcome to the second episode of The Spirit of the Torah. I'm Rabbi Daniel Raphael Silverstein, and I'm very excited to bring you this episode on Yom Kippur. As is our way, we're going to explore some ideas, some texts, and some practical applications of these ideas and texts, some way that we can bring what we're learning into our lives in a way that can actually help our experience of the festival and help us achieve growth in our lives. And every festival in our calendar is such an amazing opportunity for growth. And Yom Kippur is said to be the holiest day of the year. One teaching we have is that everything exists in three dimensions, teaching that goes back to Sefer Yetzirah, as it's understood by some of the later Kabbalists, that everything exists in the dimensions of Olam, Shana, and Nefesh. That's space, time, and being or soul. And that we can map these dimensions onto each other. So the example that I'm referring to here is that the Kabbalists say we can actually map the calendar, the structure of our year onto the human body. And there's a beautiful teaching in the Mo'anaim where he says which part of the body each festival relates to, depending on the sefirah, the quality or the character trait it relates to in our body or the emotion. And Yom Kippur is not one of the regular sefirot. It's not one of our regular emotions or character traits. According to this teaching, it is in fact the soul and the life force of the entire year. So there's something about Yom Kippur, the Rebbe is telling us, that we can tap into the deepest parts of who we are that gives us a new lease of life for the entire year. So how does it happen? How does that work? How do we tap into our deepest self? Well, on one level, we can understand it quite straightforwardly that if we have 25 hours where we're not engaged in eating and drinking and even thinking about what food we're going to prepare and fulfilling all of our regular physical appetites in the regular way, but 25 hours out of the whole year where we are really focused on the question of who are we on the deeper level and what is it we actually really want to be and how do we really want to live, then that in itself is going to bring us a certain amount of freedom and rejuvenation. But there's more, so much more. According to the Kabbalists, Yom Kippur is identified with one of the sefirot or qualities of the tree of life, but it's not one of our regular emotions, not one of the 7 lower qualities that, for example, we count between Pesach and Shavuot, that manifest fully in this world. It's identified with the upper quality of Bina. And Bina is a feminine quality called understanding in English, and it's known as the upper mother or the womb from which our emotions emerge. In other words, our experience of ourselves on a day-to-day level, feeling the emotions that we all go through, that comes from Bina. That grows out of, is born from Bina. So Bina is seen as the root of the day-to-day self that most of us inhabit most of the time. Now, very interestingly, the Kabbalistic texts tell us that Yom Kippur, as I mentioned before, is identified with Bina. Also, they say both of these things, Yom Kippur and Bina, are identified with Teshuvah, and they also identify these things in a Kabbalistic equation. All these things are analogous to each other with Olam Haba, the world to come, or as could be more accurately translated, according to many of our sources, the world that is coming. In other words, not necessarily a world that only begins after we end our life in this world, but actually a world which is always in existence, a kind of parallel dimension that we can actually access at any time. This is talked about in the early Midrash and in the Zohar, and even by Maimonides in his Laws of Teshuvah, that the world to come, Olam Haba, is actually something that is a question of consciousness. We can access it if we choose to access it. So for example, one way we can access the world to come, according to this idea of the world to come, and again, the world to come here is analogous in Kabbalah to Yom Kippur, to Teshuvah, to this upper mother that is the womb from which we emerge from which we are born from. So one way we can access it, we're told, is by having a relationship with the self that we want to be, our best possible self, the self that we can imagine ourselves being. And if you listen to the previous episode about Rosh Hashanah, about our relationship with our future self, you may see the resonance and similarity here. But there's an extra ingredient on Yom Kippur, about Yom Kippur, which makes it even deeper and even sweeter. And that is really the essence of Yom Kippur is about forgiveness. The word Kippur, kapara, means a wiping away or a covering up of that which we want to leave behind to allow the possibility of us to be a brand new creation. And Yom Kippur, by leaving behind the physical, by dressing in white, by spending all of our time immersed in the deeper questions of who we have been, who we want to be, we have a chance to really make a profound new beginning as compared to a mikveh, a body of ritual water that is also a vessel for rebirth. And it's really interesting. We might think for rebirth and a new beginning that we have to perform some kind of magic act to be a brand new person completely unrelated to the one before. Rav Kook says something very beautiful. Rav Kook says, actually, all we need to do is reveal the essence of what was there all along, or return what was there all along to its root. And he says the same is actually true for the future redeemed messianic world that our tradition looks forward to. It's not that suddenly everything is going to dramatically change form. The molecules and atoms will just be totally different and unrecognizable for what they were before, but something will be revealed that was actually always there before in potential, that was latent, and then will come into actuality. So how does this work with us in practice? What's the practical application of this beautiful idea from Kabbalah that Yom Kippur is the day of Bina, of upper understanding, this upper mother, this upper womb that our personalities emerge from? Well, the Talmud says that Bina is the ability to understand the relationship between different things, the ability to see that the world is made up of separate, discrete things and understand the relationship between them. This is distinct from another quality called Chokhmah or wisdom, which is the sibling or lover, the partner to Bina, which balances it and complements it, whereas Bina is feminine, Chokhmah is masculine, and whereas Bina is about understanding and appreciating the details and the relationship between each separate piece, Chokhmah is about actually appreciating the oneness of everything. It's about experiencing everything as somehow part of one big picture. But right now, let's focus on Bina, because Bina is going to help us understand what is our work at this time as we prepare for Yom Kippur. When the Kabbalists tell me that Bina is Teshuvah, one way I can understand it is by doing the work of Cheshbon Nefesh, of spiritual accounting. I look back at everything that's happened in the past year, and indeed throughout my life, and I try and understand it as best I can from a point of view of wanting to be the best person I can. Because again, Bina includes an association with Olam Haba, and therefore my best possible self. A self which hasn't even come into being in this world fully, but that I can nonetheless still be connected to through consciousness. So basically, here's the practice. Imagine somehow that I am my best possible self. Inhabit that self for a minute, or just connect with it as much as I can. And from that point of view, look back at everything that's happened, or perhaps just pick a few things which are salient, things I'm proud of, things I want to celebrate, things I want to give thanks for, but also some challenging things, relationships maybe, which are bringing me challenge in my life, or particular episodes that I wish had gone differently to how they went. And look back at them, not from a point of view of judgment, not from a point of view of giving myself a hard time, God forbid, but from a point of view of, imagine if I get to be the best possible person that I can be, that I've made it to have those elevated qualities, and I get to be that loving upper mother of Bina, of understanding to myself, who gives birth to my emotional experience in the best possible way. How would that quality of understanding, how would that self look back at what has passed in the past year and throughout my life? How would it see how all those different pieces fit together? What is the narrative, the story that it would tell? So that's one way we can prepare for Yom Kippur and do the work even on Yom Kippur itself, of Teshuvah, of Bina, of letting ourselves be reborn from that womb as a new entity, as a Bria Chadasha. So to sum up, Rosh Hashanah is about looking forward and beginning to build a relationship with our best possible future self. And on Yom Kippur, when we look back, a lot of Yom Kippur is about looking back. The liturgy is full of confession, about saying, I'm sorry I did this, I'm sorry I fell short, and so on. But when we do that practice on Yom Kippur, the question is, who is doing it? Are we doing it from a place of smallness, God forbid, of toxic blame and shame and guilt, of making ourselves feel bad? Or are we looking back with the perspective of Bina, understanding how one thing fits together with another, the upper mother, the womb from whom we are given birth in love in every moment? In other words, when I look back at everything that happened, can I have real love and compassion for everything that has passed, including for myself? And can I, as Rav Kook says we should, forgive myself, as well as asking for forgiveness from others, from the Creator, from the universe? Can I also forgive myself? Because Rav Kook actually says that has to come first. We have to first be able to show that compassion to ourselves in a practical way, and then we can extend it outwards, he says. And when we do, he says, we fill the world with light. All those we're connected to immediately, and then all those we're connected to less directly, and eventually the entire world is filled with the light of the forgiveness that we can show to ourselves and that we can inhabit. And when we do this, he says, we reveal the goodness that is hidden in absolutely everything. Our forgiveness for ourselves, our ability to be compassionate for ourselves, reveals that hidden goodness in all of existence. May it be so. I wish you a meaningful Yom Kippur, Gemar Chatim Tova. May you and your loved ones and all of us be signed and sealed in the Book of Life.